it's Olivia and welcome back to Live in Literature. Thank you so much for all the love and support I received in my last video, and if you have not seen it yet, feel free to head on over to my channel to check it out.
Check it out!
Okay guys, as you've seen from today's title, we're just gonna hop right into it. Today we are doing books around the world. Ooh, very fun.
And we're on our way around the world!
And this challenge was a little bit harder. One of my friends kind of challenged me to do it because she thought that it would be interesting to see different books set in different places around the world and like what those books are, why you picked them, and why they're recommended that I'm going to recommend for you guys. I'm taking up the challenge today. I will say that there are two, I tried to go by like continent. So I tried to go by like getting one for every continent, or like a little series, or like a duology for every continent. I will say that I have two continents that were a little bit tricky, so I kind of had to flub around and fish around with it. But I digress. We're here. We're doing books around the world, and I hope that you guys enjoy this video, so let's just get started.
A whole new world, a dazzling place I never knew.
Okay guys, well here's the stack for you today. It's a nice fat stack. Some of them are duologies, some of them have like series attached to them, but I just wanted to recommend a bunch to you guys today so you guys can have more to read. So let's do this thing. Also, quick little side note, no, I'm not sick. My throat is just like, my voice is just kind of gone, and so if I sound really weird in this video, that's why. Right now I sound like a 40-year-old smoker.
Grandma, it's me, Anastasia.
My voice just is kind of janked right now, so that's why there's that. So super great for me. Okay, moving on. First book we're going to talk about is, we're going to start with North America.
USA! USA!
We're going to start with the pretty much the most iconic place in America. Probably the most iconic, the most everyone will know, is of course New York City. And
New York.
I figure what better way to represent North America as a whole than with Alexandra Bracken's Lore, which is technically an urban fantasy, a Greek mythology urban fantasy, similar to like Percy Jackson, but like,
The real no one will ever top Percy Jackson. Love you, King Rick. You're the best.
Yeah. I think I am the son of Poseidon.
And I'll give you guys a quick little plot summary. So Lore is about a young girl named Lore Perseus, and this book is about basically how there are 7 families of different Greek gods that have taken place like all over the world. There are 7 different houses, essentially, of like the old Greek like heroes or whatever. And the gods every 7 years have an agonon, which is like a big battle to see who becomes like which family, like who is ever the leader of that family, or which family is going to take over and become like God-like or God-worthy. And it's a huge battle between clans and families. And Lore Perseus is basically sworn off ever doing the agonon, but this year it's going to take place in New York City. And she kind of gets swept up into it because the goddess Athena seeks her out, and her best friend Castor both need her help.
And so this is a friends to lovers, by the way. This is a friends to lovers story.
Two best friends in a room, they might kiss. Yes, we will. What?
Kind of really good though. I actually really enjoyed this friends to lovers. It's really interesting. It's very complex. It's different than other friends to lovers. This was a very strong Greek urban fantasy. You haven't seen a lot of those recently. I feel like I talked about this before, but I feel like when it comes to mythology, it's either like
super dark, super heavy, and super just like really confusing to read,
or it's almost too light and too airy and just kind of like there's not enough depth to it.
This I feel like is a good in-between. I feel like Lore really brings a lot to the table. We're representing New York City here. I feel like nothing is going to represent America better than this bad egg girl Lore coming to fight for her people, fight for her family, and just kind of do it in the best way possible. So let's go, Lore. Let's go, North America.
Do it for America!
I just love America so much.
Next, we are headed to South America with Laney Forbes, The Seventh Son, and the sequel, The Jade Bones.
South American countries is what we're about to tell.
Now, Laney Forbes wrote this, it's a trilogy actually. The 3rd book just came out this year back in February, and I haven't even gotten a chance to read it, called The Obsidian Butterfly. But so far I have these 2. And The Seventh Son is a Mayan and Aztec mythology, but it uses roots of the Mayan and Aztec people from like ancient times, like long ago in South America.
It's El Dorado.
To give you guys a quick plot summary, we have young Prince Akin, who is not ready to take on the throne. His father has just passed away as emperor, and Prince Akin has the power of the sun. He can control the sun, but he needs a queen to stand by his side so he can represent his people. And 6 noble daughters from different houses who all control they all have different powers, each of the houses does. There's a young princess named Princess Maiana, who is of the blood of the water house, so she controls water. but she does not, there's a super big secret about her that she doesn't like to participate in certain things in this like big religion of the people. And she doesn't reveal it to Prince Akin when she meets him, but as they start forming an attachment to each other, she realizes that this is going to become a bigger deal than she could even imagine.
No. This is bad. This is very, very bad. This is really bad.
I feel like The Seventh Son is a really fun YA. I feel like it's really interesting. I feel like it's a lot like, I love when people, like, I love different houses of, like, powers. I think that's a really interesting concept, and I like that they've, like, mixed it in with this gorgeous Mayan and Aztec culture. You get to learn a lot about this, like, interesting world, like, ancient world that you normally wouldn't. And I feel like it is a very good YA. It's not my favorite YA.
It's not bad. It's just not good.
It's very strong. I gave the book like 4 stars when I read it the first time. It's a good YA, maybe like 3. It's good, but not like super strong. I feel like there's not enough character development between our two mains. You definitely see more of that in the Jade Bones, but even still, in the Jade Bones, I'm a little bit more invested in the, there's 2 other characters who have like a side romance story, which I was far more interested in.
Whoa! That's interesting, but I sure don't care.
The Seventh Son and the Jade Bones is a great South American Mayan Aztec retelling, and I think it's a really great story, so you guys should go check it out. Heading right across on the other side of the world, we're going to head on over to Asia. And I felt what better book to represent Asia than These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. And of course, Our Violent Ends. Now, I think Chloe Gong is one of the most talented authors currently in the YA spectrum. She is
Unbeatable, unmatched, writes some of the best books that I have ever seen in my entire life.
Talented, brilliant, incredible, amazing, show-stopping, spectacular, never the same, totally unique.
A true wonder to compete with. She's incredible. And so if you haven't picked up one of her books yet, these are her first 2. Unmatched. She's incredible. So I've talked about this book series a bunch because it is so good, but I do want to give you guys a quick plot summary once again.
These Violent Delights is a Romeo and Juliet Shanghai 1920s retelling. We're headed to Shanghai, China. It is bustling, it is busy, it is a time of like industrialism, and it is also a time of gangs and corruption. We have the red gang, the white flowers and the scarlet reds, 2 different gangs that are rivals, and of course you have Juliet Kai, who is part of the Scarlet Gang, and Roma Montagov, who is a Russian mobster. And the 2 young lovers, of course, it's similar to Romeo and Juliet, are set against one another in this bustling city. And at some point they get thrown together and they have to solve this big crime thing that's going on, and this big like murder scheme that's been going on between the 2 houses. It turns into a whole big debacle. There's romance, there's intrigue, it's enemies to lovers, and it is fiery. It's brilliant. This book could not be more well crafted.
You can smell Shanghai in these pages. You can feel the energy of the time period in this world.
Nope. Smells like success to me.
I'm absolutely obsessed. The first one is These Violent Delights. The second one, the end of the duology, is These Violent Ends. And Chloe Gong this year has a new book called Foul Lady Fortune, which is a continuation with a couple of the characters from the original series in a side series that is coming out later this year, I think in November. So definitely check out These Violent Delights and Our Violent Ends for a great Shanghai fantasy. It's a load of fun and it is amazing. Next, we're going to move on down the globe just a bit, and we're going to head on over to Africa with an incredible African mythology and / mermaid story with Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen.
I can see we have to take this slowly. Mermaid.
Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen is a African mythology mermaid retelling about a young girl named Simi who gives her life basically away to Mami Wata, a mermaid who collects the souls of the dead thrown into the sea and sends them on to the Supreme Creator. And Simi one day, as she's collecting souls in the ocean, sees a young boy get thrown overboard, but he's alive. And so instead of taking his soul, she saves his life and brings him to land. But this essentially disrupts the whole balance between Mami Wata and the mermaids and of course the other gods in this African world. And so Simi has to take this boy and bring him to the Supreme Creator to plead her case and to basically essentially save all these lives. But there's a lot more to this boy than is expected, and Simi and this boy end up getting wrapped up into this whole big conspiracy that they weren't expecting.
I had not heard very many African mythology stories before until this one. I didn't even know who Mami Wata was, and I didn't know that it was such a big part of the mythology. I think it's super interesting. Simi is a really interesting protagonist, and you get to learn a lot about her life. There are some definitely mature themes in here, even though it is YA, that deal with slavery and trafficking and things like that, which are super horrible, but like it sheds a light on it that is so important, and I think is really, really gorgeous. And I think that Natasha Bowen does a great job of shedding that light on this dark subject. And I think that the book is really awesome. It does stand on its own, but there is a sequel coming soon. I am very, very excited to read it, and I definitely will be checking it out because this book does kind of end on a cliffhanger that you definitely want to know what's going on next. So this is Skin of the Sea by Natasha Bowen. Check it out. It is amazing. Next, we're heading off to the great old city of London, my favorite city in the world.
Are you not ashamed of yourself? Are you not embarrassed?
Sorry, everyone.
And we are going to be talking about All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody. All of Us Villains. This was one of my most favorite books of last year. It was in my top 10 best reads for the year. This is our European representation, and I don't think anything will represent Europe better than a little bit of house bloodshed between rival families trying to win it all through magic, through blood, and through tears.
Hi, I'm Emily Blunt.
And I'm James McAvoy.
And we're here to discuss a typical British day.
At every generation, at the start of the blood moon, 7 families must compete and send in a champion to compete for their family for all the high magic in the world. This book is an urban fantasy, so it does take place in the modern world, but each of these families, the highest currency is magic, and these 7 families are competing for it in a remote town called Ilverneath. Normally, the tournament goes unaware by anyone else but the people in the town, but this year, a massive tell-all book came out, exposing the families, exposing things and the liars and the cheaters and the traitors, and all these things to the world, and so now this event has been highly publicized and has definitely changed some things for our competitors. But once again, these 7 people must enter the realm to compete for high magic, and basically we'll see what happens to them as they continue to compete against one another. Will they try to rewrite the story? Will they try to stop the cycle? Or is it just going to end all in blood?
Bloody hell.
I loved All of Us Villains. I thought it was a very interesting book. I thoroughly enjoyed the perspectives that I got to read from. I loved all of the characters. But I think that this one's really interesting because there's a lot of darkness in this one. It's a lot of like, you get to see like kind of the worst of everybody. Like everybody's bad side is on display in this book, and it's very interesting to see.
We may be bad, but we're so good at it.
Like, there's no hiding it. There's no sugarcoating it. People are out for blood. They're out to kill each other.
I swear, if I hadn't promised Mother on her deathbed that I wouldn't kill you, I would kill you.
And a lot of it is trying to decide, like, how much of your own moral compass are you willing to give up to essentially succeed and win all the magic. It's kind of intense, and honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's definitely not everybody's cup of tea. The ending is super intense, but I definitely think it's worth your time if you really want to read some like urban fantasy, high magic, bunch of British kids going up against one another and trying to beat the crap out of one another, but then also like joining alliances and making teams. Very low-key kind of Hunger Games-esque, but more like magic style, like Harry Potter style.
I love magic.
It's very interesting. It's super cool. It was a book that I unexpectedly thoroughly enjoyed. It's one that I wouldn't normally pick up, but I'm so glad that I did because this book is so freaking good. And I think it's a great representation for Europe. Next, we're moving on to Australia with all the Aussies down below in the south. Okay, that was not even close to an Australian accent. I'm so sorry to every Australian that ever existed ever.
Welcome to Australia, man.
So this is where things get a little bit topsy-turvy in my book ranks for every continent. I don't know if I've even read a book that takes place in Australia.
Then you were like, whoa.
And that's a darn shame because Australia is super freaking cool. You guys have the outback, you guys have dingoes, and you guys have koalas, and surfing, and the EAC, the reef, and all the fishes and things. Sweet.
Totally.
I'm really sorry to all the Aussies out there that I'm offending right now with my accent, but
absolutely not. Not me. Certainly not I.
But I think I found a loophole. One of the world's greatest YA authors / like adult authors is Mr. Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. One of my absolute most favorite YA books that they've collabed on, they are both Australian authors, is Aurora Rising.
Aurora Rising is a sci-fi fantasy adventure between 6 little misfits who get stuck together on a ship and end up having to like go through this whole crazy mystery together of solving the mystery of this basically like alien girl, where she came from, how she got here, and her life, and basically what's going on in the cosmos and how everything's gonna go wrong, and these 6 like misfits are like thrown together in a crazy situation.
That's crazy talk.
It's found family, it's got romance, it is super fun and really witty and very bantery. I love when Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff join together on books because Jay Kristoff for me is a little bit too intense. He writes some scary stuff. He writes some real intense stuff. He writes some very edgy stuff. He writes some pretty crazy stuff.
That's dark.
And I feel like Amy Kaufman is very soft, very gentle. She knows how to write like a very sweet story.
But I feel like when you combine the sweet and the edgy together, you get Aurora Rising. And it is a load of fun. It's a great sci-fi book. And normally I don't like sci-fi. Sci-fi for me is like bleh, like boring the house down boots. This is one sci-fi book that I will recommend to you. So I definitely think you should take my recommendation for a good sci-fi if you're like, you know what, I want to try something new. Or you're like, I've always loved sci-fi and this sounds like a really fun one. It's really, really fun and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And so that's my representation for Australia is Amy Kaufman and Jade Kristoff's Aurora Rising. I hope you guys will check that one out. And unfortunately, you guys, I know that what you're all thinking is, where is Antarctica? There was not one book about Antarctica.
Yeah, you're right.
Listen, I will say that I tried my darndest to think if I had read any books that take place in Antarctica. And for the life of me, I just cannot think of any.
I am shocked. Shocked. Well, not that shocked.
But I thought if I could get as close to Antarctica as I could, / like the North Pole, either end of the spectrum. I'm going for like Antarctica or like the North Pole, like either end of the cold spectrum. Then like we'll get as close as we can. And that is where I'm going to recommend Between Shades of Grey by Ruta Sepetys. Between Shades of Grey is a 1940s Holocaust survival book. It is an incredible book.
It is about a young 15-year-old girl named Lena and her brother and her mother and their family as they are transported from Lithuania to a Siberian work camp, labor camp, essentially, throughout the 1940s. And essentially, it just sheds a light on another group of people who were taken away from their homes during the 1940s and the cruelty of not only just like the Nazis, but the Soviets of the time who shipped them off to Siberia to essentially survive or die on their own in this place.
It is a brutal book. There is a romance aspect. And it is very lovely. It will paint a very dark picture, but it is a very beautiful story. And I think it sheds a light on something that we just don't talk about enough. The book takes place obviously in Siberia, like in the middle of nowhere in the icy tundra. And that's why I picked it, because you can just feel the cold seeping into these people's bones as they struggle to survive in these work camps. And you just listen to Lena's survival story and her courage and her like willing to do what it takes to live another day. It's really amazing. It's so gorgeous. The book definitely is worthwhile. If you're looking for a 1940s like historical fiction that'll just like send you on a trip that you weren't expecting to go on and it'll leave you in tears, but also for just like wanting more, this is the book to read. So I hope that you guys will all check that one out because it really is so incredible.
Well, you've really sold me on it.
And that is all the books that I have for you guys today. So thank you so much for joining me here. And I hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Live in Literature YouTube channel. Once again, guys, if you have any book recommendations, video recommendations, or just recommendations in general that you want to tell me, please feel free to leave comments down below in the comment section. Once again, thank you guys so much for joining me on this channel. Thank you for being here. I love you guys the most, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.